There are a number of videos on the Blue German DAG training ammunition, but I had some questions that none of them really answered. So that is what this video is today. I wanted to see, what does the velocity look like out of a long-barreled gun like this Ishapur 2A1? I believe this has a 24-inch barrel. I was curious about the construction and the makeup of this round, and I also wanted to see how lethal it was. So that is what I'm going to be talking about in today's video. So this is going to begin looking like a normal ammo review I've done on this channel before, and then there will be some extra information at the end. So I have these blue training German dummy rounds, and well, they don't really work too well in this rifle. I get a lot of duds since they're not really intended for it. But I have a chronograph, and this is a really long barrel, so I thought it'd be cool to see what velocities we're getting. Yeah. (4,410 feet per second. Also, they don't feed, so I need to single load them. 4,479 feet per second. (4,481 feet per second. 4,351 feet per second. 4,483 feet per second. 4,392 feet per second. Dang. So that was our time on the range. Our velocity low was 4,351 with a high of 4,483. That leads to a spread of 132 feet per second from lowest to highest, and an average of 4,432.7 feet per second. Now, what that gives us is about a 1,700 feet per second higher average velocity than what we would expect with standard M80 ball 7.62 NATO ammunition. Now, it is achieving that with a 10 grain bullet as opposed to a 144 to 147 grain bullet. I had an issue of only about 66% of these rounds firing correctly. About a third of them wouldn't fire. I think that was caused because this ammunition is manufactured different for a different chamber. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Okay, so what is the story behind these rounds? Well, they are a German training ammunition. And for the G3 rifle, there is a replacement bolt that is meant to be used with this ammunition. And the way that it works is it is a direct blowback bolt, so this ammunition will cycle, feed, and fire perfectly with that bolt installed. There are multiple videos, including one by, I believe, Military Arms Channel, where he has one of these bolts, so he's able to fire this ammunition in full auto. Now, if you were to fire a standard pressure 7.62 round in the gun with this bolt installed, you would have a very bad time. So I think there are some slightly different dimensions that make this round unique. So one of the things you will have noticed in that video was that as I went to eject these rounds, they wouldn't really eject properly. Let me do that again on camera for you to see. It doesn't really eject properly. That's because the rim of this round is slightly recessed in a little bit compared to a normal 7.62 by 51. And I think that would make it so that if the other bolt was installed, a normal 7.62 by 51 round shouldn't feed. I also think that there is a slightly different length as well to make it so that 7.62 by 51 wouldn't feed, and that was why I was having firing issues in my Ishapur 2A1. Now, this is just my guess, but I think that the headspace is just slightly shorter, and because of that, it is just being held in place by the extractor. Now, this is all conjecture. I haven't actually gotten out the calipers and measured that. It could be that these rounds are older and the primers just aren't as good anymore, but that is what I think is happening here. So I think if I had a normal 308 rifle versus a 7.62 rifle with looser chamber, this ammunition may fire just a little bit better. All that is to say though, even if your rifle is in perfect working condition, these rounds may have difficulty firing inside of it. So before you go out and buy 1,000 of them, I would recommend buying a smaller batch and testing it. One other thing about my range time is the accuracy of this ammunition. So while I was on the range, this ammunition was meant to be fired at 25 yards, so I did some accuracy testing with this ammunition at 25 yards. Let's go take a look at the target. I was shooting at this target here. We have 5 hits, and that's roughly a 2-inch group. The bullet weight spread is 9.9 grains to 10.1 grains. They're supposed to be 10 grains even, so that's just a 0.2 grain spread, just a little bit in either direction. And this whole thing, bullet, case, and all, is all molded as one polymer piece. So that may just be some inaccuracy with when I pulled the bullet out of the case. Now, the powder was 12.1 grains to 12.4 grains, so a spread of 0.3 grains. That means it's about 30 grains lighter than all of the other 7.62 ammo that I've tested. Granted, though, that 7.62 ammunition is propelling a 145 grain projectile, whereas this is just propelling a 10 grain plastic projectile. And this is low pressure, short range training ammunition, so that's pretty much to be expected. This is about what we would expect with 9mm ammunition, to be honest. Now, this gives us an average powder weight of 12.3 grains. But let's take a close-up look at how this round is constructed and put together. Here is the box of how this ammunition comes. So you can see the 50 Patron, which is cartridges, and then here is all of the other loading information. Now, if I open this up, these were stacked in rows of 10, but as I've taken rounds out of this, they've just kind of fallen apart, and that's how they're laying. Okay, now this is what a complete cartridge looks like. The bullet up here in the front and the case are all one molded polymer piece. And then the back with the primer is pressed on after it's filled with powder. Pretty interesting, right? Okay, so this is just the construction from what I can tell. I did pull a bullet apart by just cutting down the side with a knife. So that is what the case looks like, and then here is the end piece right there. Primer side, there's the opening side. And then it just sits on the side like that. Okay, so here is a case after it has been fired, and it looks like the bullet is pressed in there, but actually the case is that the bullet sits on top like that. So this is a bullet I just separated out with some pliers, and that is how the bullet would sit on there. And then when it fires, the bullet tears away, and the case is left inside the chamber. Here are 2 bullets that I fired into water jugs, and you can see that they mushroomed out much like a hollow point would, which is actually really interesting. And then here is the powder. It just looks like a normal cylinder powder. There's nothing really too much to talk about here. Maybe if I found a standard German round, I could tell you that it was the exact same kind of powder used, but I don't have a German round, so I'm not entirely sure. I know there is a standard pressured 308 round with a plastic case, and I would be really interested to see if it's manufactured in this exact same way. But those are like $70 for a box of 20, so that's probably not going to be seen by me anytime soon. Now, even though this is a light bullet, this round is absolutely flying. It is shooting with energy at about 436 foot-pounds, which is slightly above a standard FMJ 9mm, but it is still 2,000 feet per second lower than standard 7.62x51, which fires at 2,400 foot-pounds. So what that means is this round has more energy than a 9mm. So how deadly is it? Well, let's take a look. Now, I shot this cutting board a few more times, but that big hole is the hole that we are talking about. There's the entrance, and there is the exit. This had plenty of juice. So, one of the warnings here is this is training ammunition. It's not dummy ammunition. It's certainly not blank ammunition. This will kill you. So, in fact, you might even be able to use this ammunition for hunting rabbits if you want to use your 7.62x51 or 308 NATO rifle for that. But the point is this ammunition is not dummy or blank ammunition. It is training ammunition, and it will still kill. So what are my overall thoughts on this ammunition? Well, if I had a rifle that would shoot this ammunition well, I would definitely buy more of it for things like close range training and accuracy and target practice, or if I want to give the rifle to somebody and they don't want to have harsh recoil. It would just be a really good way to shoot this ammo. In fact, this recoils about as much as like 22 long rifle would if it were shot in a rifle that was this heavy. So this ammunition has very little recoil, and I think it's still a lot of fun to shoot. But the point is that you still need to take all of the safety precautions you normally would when shooting a gun. So I hope this video was helpful for you guys, and I am 8mm Mauser Man, and I fired blue plastic ammunition out of my Ishapur 2A1, but I lived on.
Which proves it's hard to get the best of a man named John.
John.